President Peter Symbolic and Chairman Mueller, officers, trustees, faculty and staff of Ohio Dominican University, distinguished guests, parents and friends, and most especially members of the class of 2014. It's a great pleasure and privilege to be with you here today, and I thank you for the honor accorded to me. I want to thank especially my treasured friend of over 35 years, Dr. Kathleen Riley, for introducing me. We've known each other since we began our doctoral studies in history at Notre Dame in 1976, long before many of you were born. I sincerely trust, though, that graduates here today have formed friendships that will be as rich and last as long as Dr. Riley's and mine. I know this is a special day for Dr. Riley, as her own daughter Emily is a member of the graduating class, and I'm delighted to be here to celebrate with Emily and all of you graduates. It's also a true pleasure to be here at this Dominican institution, whose Thomistic motto, which we've already heard, holds up the contemplation of the truth and the willingness to share with others the fruit of this contemplation. I trust you graduates have imbibed well of the Dominican spirit during your time here. You may be planning on imbibing some other spirits in your post-commencement celebrations, but I assure you, the Dominican spirit is one that can take you far beyond your beautiful campus, and it will always serve you well and never wear off. Your school is linked integrally to a remarkable religious family, the Order of Preachers, founded by St. Dominic about 800 years ago. Dominic Guzman understood well that the benefits of study and contemplation were not simply to be held within a religious community, but they must also be taken out into the world to serve God's people. Dominicans have been known for centuries for their devoted lives of study and service that guided them to be preachers and teachers of the very Word of God, who sought to draw others into their search for the truth. No doubt, it was precisely this dedication and commitment which brought the remarkable Dominican Sisters of St. Mary of the Springs here, and which has sustained their labors for over a century. Devoted prayer, a deep commitment to study, a powerful commitment to their teaching ministry, and a willingness to build a welcoming community characterized their efforts. On this day, which is so focused on your accomplishments and on your future plans, I ask you in the same spirit as Alex, your senior speaker, I ask you to give thanks for all those who came before you here and built this special college concerned with educating the whole person. Appreciate well that you are the beneficiaries of their efforts. Now, while we are in this mode of gratitude, we must also give thanks to all those who have guided and assisted you so that you might be here today to receive your degrees. Think of the love of your parents, teachers, friends, family, perhaps spouses, and how that love has aided you on your journey and allowed you to succeed as you have. Never tire of giving thanks. Let it be part of how you lean into life. Perhaps in the spirit of Alex's address, I might ask you just to look outwards to where your parents and family are seated, you graduates, and show them your gratitude, your thanks. My dear friends, I trust you are in a generous mood this morning. Giving a commencement address which actually interests the graduating class and their guests is a rather challenging task, and I gather many fail at it. It is said that over 80% of college graduates cannot remember anything that their commencement speaker said, and a significant percentage of that number can't even remember who the commencement speaker was. Fortunately, these days everyone has cell phones and can occupy their time of the address by sending text messages, playing games, taking selfie photos, so at least something can get accomplished over the next 10 minutes or so. But I have a confession to make. Did you hear that? A confession to make. Here it is. I have listened to a lot of commencement addresses, and I enjoyed a lot of them, and I even learned from them. Even more, I edited a book of Notre Dame commencement addresses, which is titled, "Go Forth and Do Good." That title is the theme of my address this morning. If you remember nothing else of my talk, remember that instruction, you graduates. Go forth and do good. Are you ready to do that? Has Ohio Dominican equipped you well to venture forth from this safe oasis of learning and to make your contribution in the world, whatever the challenges you might confront along the way? Do you have the wisdom to navigate through the trials and tribulations you may face with a true moral compass to guide you? Or are you likely to be easily led astray? Or are you simply going to retreat to your parents' basement, engage in a little self-absorption while enjoying your mother's cooking, and generally let the world pass you by? Dear graduates, I ask you, have you found here a larger purpose for your life, that you can move beyond the self-centered ideologies that characterize so much of our times? This sense of purpose is key, isn't it? You don't need me to tell you this. We know it from our own lives. We don't even have to read Pastor Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life, although it still warrants reading. We have a greater sense of satisfaction, and we experience more genuine and authentic happiness when our lives have real meaning and when they matter in the lives of others. Of course, the pursuit of pleasure usually can provide a temporary lift, but it tends not to last. A life of virtue, on the other hand, can be sustained. I must note, however, and I do so even here at this university devoted to learning, that the cerebral virtues, like intellectual curiosity and love of learning and discovery, are valuable, but they're less important than such interpersonal virtues as kindness, as gratitude, as genuine love. These are crucial. Now, if I were a psychologist, I would advise you to be more generous and to deepen your relationships and so forth. That would be fine. But my friends, I must speak to you at a deeper level, as a priest, a preacher of the gospel, so as to get at what really matters. I, too, feel a connection to the Dominican spirit and charism of preaching. To those of you who are Christian believers, let me say that your ultimate purpose comes in pursuing the mission God asks of you and allowing God's life to enter you, to guide you to do the right. I think this is what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was conveying in a 1956 sermon when he said, "I still believe that standing up for the truth of God is the greatest thing in the world. This is the end of life. The end of life is not to be happy. The end of life is not to achieve pleasure and avoid pain. The end of life is to do the will of God, come what may." And dear friends, please don't set the bar low for yourself. Don't be content with a tepid mediocrity. Pursue your true vocation and do the distinct work that only you can do. I wish I could tell you that it will always be easy, but I am a realist and a student of history. I must pass along to you some of those great lessons of history that are often painfully learned, that things don't always turn out right, nor the way we expect, and certainly not the way we want. But that can't deter you if you are willing to be your best self. Allow the courage and the capacity for self-sacrifice that assuredly resides within you to emerge. Let it come forth, and dare I say it, do some good. Build a loving family. Come to the aid of a neighbor in need. Defend the very weakest among us and give them their chance for life. Stand up for the truth, even when the truth is unpopular in the general culture. Do your part, whatever it may be, to take the Dominican charism of service out into the world. Now, dear friends, one of the unfortunate criticisms of the millennial generation, to which many of you belong, is that you are distrustful of major institutions and authority figures, as well as somewhat disengaged from broader issues in society. Now, looking out at you on this celebratory day, I certainly don't sense a general disaffection among you, but let us be honest. Sometimes the burden of being involved and engaged in the world can seem just a bit tiresome. It can seem far easier to simply tune it all out, right? And into the bargain, what can one person do anyway? When this defeatist mood tempts you, I want to encourage you to draw inspiration from two saints recently canonized by Pope Francis. Two men who knew the world was not a perfect place, but believed deeply that Christians must love the world and engage the world. Of course, I refer to St. John the 23rd and St. John Paul II. As you would know, St. John the 23rd called the Second Vatican Council over 50 years ago, and the then Bishop Karol Wojtyła participated in the council. I want to put to you graduates here that the teaching of the Second Vatican Council provides much to guide us still, and I want to reflect on just one aspect of it, the call to public service and how it should be pursued. In December of 1965, the Council issued its pastoral constitution on the church in the modern world. This great document, Gaudium et Spes, I hope some of you read it during your undergraduate studies here, developed a theme of openness to the world. Its optimistic tone gave voice to a sense that there was much common ground among Christians of various denominations and also with non-Christians as they sought to work for the common good. The Council Fathers emphasized the interdependence of the person and society, the importance of the common good, and the innate dignity of every human person. From such foundations, Gaudium et Spes approached very positively the issue of Catholics' participation in political life. The Church regards as worthy of praise and consideration, the document states, the work of those who, as a service to others, dedicate themselves to the welfare of the state and undertake the burdens of this task. Thus, the council honored the political vocation and encouraged Christians to consider it. Importantly, Gaudium et Spes clearly conveyed that such Christian politicians were to engage the modern world in ways that promoted the dignity of each person and the common good. They were to serve within their own domain, wherever they found themselves, as leaven, if you will. They were certainly not to see their political activities as separate from their religious commitments. This must be emphasized. Gaudium et Spes says, "Let there be no false opposition between professional and social activities on the one part and religious life on the other." There was to be no privatizing of religion, no sequestering of faith convictions into some sort of special compartment that had no impact on the rest of one's activities. Sadly, a review of the efforts of Catholics in public life over the past half-century, the subject of the book I'm working on at the present time, reveals that the Vatican II vision lost out in many cases to what we might call the privatized religion model. Of course, there were notable exceptions, like the great pro-life governor of Pennsylvania, Robert P. Casey. But so many Catholic politicians hid behind the notion that religion is a private matter, and they refrained from utilizing their faith as an inspiration and guide for their actions. They were personally opposed, as the expression went, but wouldn't actually do anything on even fundamental political and moral issues. In many ways, friends, it is a sad story, and prospects for any rapid change seem dim. Yet I say to you, graduates of the class of 2014, we must see matters in a longer-term perspective. We might describe the last 50 years as a difficult period in which many Catholics in public life lost their way. But let me convey to you that we are still receiving and learning properly from the teachings of Vatican II. Much work lies ahead, and it is your generation that must undertake it. May I express the hope that many of you new graduates will be willing to take on the task of public service in its various dimensions, and that you will do so with a clear conviction that your well-grounded religious convictions are not to be divorced from your political actions. Only that way will you be assured of playing your part in building up a more just social and civil order. Dear friends, I realize full well that not all of you will feel called to pursue the call of public service, but do not rule yourselves out too quickly. Remember always your own responsibility to contribute to the common good. Refuse to become disinterested bystanders. But in whatever vocation you choose to pursue, let the values you have learned here at Ohio Dominican serve as a guide for you. Like previous generations who came to this special place of learning, you have had the privilege to receive not simply training for career, but education for a life of purpose. Live that life to the full. May St. Dominic and St. Catherine of Siena intercede for each of you, and so too Saints John the 23rd and John Paul the Great. And may the Lord guide you on every step of your journey as you go forth today and continue doing good. Thank you, and God bless you.